Hi, everybody, and welcome to Cardboard Conversations. It is our podcast light format where we do longer interviews. And today we have a very special treat and guest for you all. And it is Chase from Sorcery Contested Realm. And we are so happy to have you here. Thank you for joining us, Chase. Would you maybe just give a brief introduction of who you are and what your role at Eris Curiosa is?
Sure, be happy to. And I'm so excited to be here. So thanks for having me on. So I'm Chase, community manager at Sorcery Contested Realm. So I'm involved with, connecting with folks across all of our social media, talking with event organizers. I help with the website content, and then I get to unleash my creativity on the YouTube channel, some of our videos, teasers, trailers, that sort of thing.
And I think you are like famously the one who is doing the owl and the grand wizard and like all these little pop-ups.
We have some fun. A lot of our Instagram reels are the Grandmaster Wizard and the Apprentice Wizard. So actually, I'm the voice of the Apprentice Wizard, and one of our designers, Sean, is actually the Grandmaster Wizard. So, cool. And the owl, anonymous at this point. Well,
anonymous owl. I love that. That's awesome to hear.
Yeah, exactly. So, Chase, what is your background in TCGs, and how did you actually end up working at Eris Curiosa?
Oh, man. Okay. I'll try, and I can sometimes go at length on these topics, so feel free to cut me off. But it started back as a young lad. I think it was like 94, 95. I was on a family trip, and we stopped, and there was a store that had this box, and it said magic on it, and it was kind of simple but alluring. And I was like, oh, can I get in? So I talked my folks into picking it up for me, and I got in the car, and we drove for like 5 hours, and I just had this box and had some dice and 2 decks, and I just stared at the art of these cards, and it transformed, my trip, but then also, like I said, a different trajectory for my life, where it led to me going back after the trip. And there was a kid that had moved from California and had no friends, and he had heard about this game, and we bonded over it. And the next thing we knew, that circle got a little bit bigger, and then that got bigger. And then we had a community that was built around this thing that admittedly, back in the early 90s was not the cool thing per se. But we found our people.
Yeah.
And I think for me, TCGs have always been about the imagination and then finding like-minded people and having that kind of community, right? Where you can go and share and bond over the shared interest. And then from there, that was a kind of a gateway into other card games down the line, but also role-playing games, miniature games. And that sort of, became a bigger part of my world now that I work with Eris Curiosa. And actually, I guess to answer the second part of the question, how did I end up at Eris Curiosa? I ended up originally I started a podcast, and then I made a YouTube channel, and that led me to connect to other people in the industry in board games. And so I started making trailers for games, Kickstarters. And we had, I think it was like November or December before the Kickstarter launched. I was kind of approached about, hey, would you be able to maybe be interested in doing a trailer for this game? And I said, well, before we do it, I gotta try it out, because Kickstarter trailers are a little funny, because for a lot of games, they want the trailer before they have the money, right? So it's kind of like a weird zone. And but this one was, Eric really had his stuff together. The art was amazing. I got to try out the game, and it was absolutely wild. And I said, let's do this. And so jumped in on that, and that's how I kind of built my relationship with Eric. And then later on down the line, that circled back for an opportunity to jump in and be part of the team officially.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So you were pretty much on, the trajectory with sorcery from the beginning. What stage was the game in when you sort of learned about it?
Well, so yeah, because with the trailer, part of it was before I made the trailer, I was like, I want to try the game. I want to, to get what it really feels like. You can't be having things move around in a video and not actually know how to play or experience. And it was rough, but in a very fun way, where everything was tuned to 11. And I think I'm a somewhat naturally jovial person. I like to laugh a lot. I like to smile a lot. But by the end of the game we played, my face hurt from smiling so much, because things were getting Pudge Butcher pulled around, and the whole board got exploded. And I was like, this is wild. This is so much fun. And so, yeah, it was pretty rough. But and it looks very different now, but it still keeps that same kind of soul. And I think that's what really is captivating me about sorcery.
Yeah, that's interesting because I mean, on some of the sample cards, you can definitely see that there was like a more let's just go wow, let's see what happens, and
Yeah.
focus on the narrative and the fun experience. And then with some play testers, it sort of got like keyed in a bit more. Is there anything like in particular that you tried back then that you sort of miss now?
I feel like everything was turned up to like, I think the grid, if I recall, I'm pretty sure some of the grid effects of creatures, I can't remember, maybe it was like scarabs, but things got like kind of tuned back a little bit to be not quite so explosive, but still have that still flavor, right? You didn't lose the identity. And we've got, Eric has such great vision, and we've also got such a great design team, Rafa, Mike, Sean, really kind of polishing things up so that you don't lose that like original intent and flavor, but it makes it maybe work in a little bit more, balanced manner.
Oh yeah, and balance it really does matter if you have, a game like Sorcery, and you need to be able to play different kind of tactics and decks and such.
Right.
And I think you really, the game has really managed to find that sweet spot where everything is actually really balanced, but at the same time really fun, and generates all those great narratives about, big sharks in the water or potch butchers or whatever. Yeah. So it's a really, inspirational game, and you can also see this inspiration in the, great upshot of content creators that are doing a lot of content for Sorcery Contested Realm. So, Chase, what do you think inspires people with Sorcery to do a lot of content creation?
I feel like, obviously people are all different, and there's a lot of different tiers of content creation, right? And I got my start originally back doing that as well. And I think that's a really tough question to answer, I guess. I think what it is in the end is, it's something that we're just so flattered by when we see people starting to create content, right? And I know you get to a certain stage and it becomes about like a job, it's money and deals and things like that. But like my favorite thing to do is to find people who have started a channel, and this is like so common. They like made a channel just to make sorcery videos, right? And it's got like 10 subscribers, and they're like, and this person, they're not doing it to get like, a sponsorship on a jacket sort of thing. They're just like, this is so cool and I want to share it. And I guess there must be some sort of joy there, but that is like a thing that actually like really motivates me and the team to see that sorts of things where it's like, so much time goes into these cards and the balance, the artists themselves, so much time goes into actually even just making the art that then goes in the card, that then gets the rules, that then goes through all this, the long pipeline. And then you see somebody out there who like it clicks with and they get it. And they're like, I want to spend my time, sharing this with other people. Right. And it's like, it's not just something they like want to hold and be like, oh, this is for me. Like, they're like, I want to share this joy with others. And a lot of times, like, people always in the content creation world, it's so common to be like, oh, my content doesn't look good or doesn't have this level. It's like kind of not about that, right? It's about like the intangible that comes across, like that enthusiasm, the interest, the sharing. So I totally didn't answer your question. but
I think you did actually.
That's what I love. But I guess like maybe can I flip it back on you? Like why do you cover sorcery? Why do you create content about sorcery?
I was afraid he was going to ask that. To answer it. Yeah, I think well, Sophie was the one that discovered the Kickstarter, and she was like, "There's this great game, and it looks like the old Magic, and it looks really great, and there's great art, and it's on a grid." I was like, "On a grid? That's never gonna last." And she was like, "Oh, but I think we should give it a try. I think we should give it a shot and support it."
Very wise.
Okay. Let's do that. and yeah, and then I actually think that you got hit by delays at the Kickstarter, but you sent 3 booster packs to us that we opened on the channel. And at that point, I was totally sold.
Yeah.
I opened those packs and looked at the art. I was like, this is awesome. And I just couldn't wait to get more cards and actually, build decks and play on that grid. And it was really fun. We also got a visit from Canada from another content creator, Sorcery Gamblers Club.
Yeah, Josh.
Yeah, exactly. And they hadn't got any product at that point, and we could just show him, the content from those 3 packs, and it was like, I love this game. I love it. So I think we were sold about that point.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think it's a combination of both the art and the mechanics, but also to be back in a universe where everything is sort of possible, the endless amounts of possibility for narrative and deck building and storytelling and, all the good nerd fandom. There's the role playing aspect, there's like the game mechanics, there's sitting down, having some chips and beers and just like seeing what works. And just like, I really like being a part of it when it's so fresh still, because it feels like you can do anything right now. And we were like, okay, this is so cool. We got to tell other people how cool this is.
Yeah. And also the grid is really, it's genius. To play in that grid gives so much depth to the game, that you have your cards and you have your abilities and your mechanics, but you also need to make some sort of tactical decisions on a battlefield, really. So it has this chess-like aspect to it, and it's also like, playing Dungeons and Dragons back in the game, back in the days with grids and monsters and miniatures. So you just have your cards on the battlefield, and it's really unique.
Yeah.
That
And
resonates with me too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's, it also draws people in that it's new and people feel like they can still help shape maybe like the early beginning of the game and be like, a positive force in the community, or someone who knows a lot about the art or different topics. And I think that's just fun, because if interests have like a huge interest in a specific topic, you also get to connect with a lot of people. For example, with the Curios, we've been able to talk with a lot of people, and that has just been so much fun.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, fantastic. You really led by example on that front. And it does help shape the community. It helps make it, that sets the tone, right? And so thank you so much for helping carry on that like positive and welcoming environment. It really means a lot.
Thank you. And you're absolutely welcome. And it just, it's just this, it's sort of like karma, it just keeps on giving. And people have been really, forthcoming and friendly.
Yeah, for sure.
And people are just there to have a good time. That's also great when you go to tournaments. There's this really casual feel to it, and people are really friendly. And even though you make mistakes, you'll be like, oh, can I redo that? And people are just, yeah, of course, just do whatever. So yeah, I think that also fosters a really, welcoming and warm community.
Yeah, for sure. So what has been like your favorite thing about getting to be the community manager? Because you are saying we have this really, growing community, but still rather small, and everybody sort of knows everybody, but the positive vibe is definitely there.
I think my favorite thing is just seeing the interactions people have, right? Because in a lot of ways, community manager, it's like we want to create a space, right? This is the game sets a framework, right? And then it's kind of like the garden boundaries. And then, the garden gets to grow, and we maybe have to step in every once in a while if necessary. And that could be FAQs or helping mediate things or whatever. But it's really this like, boundaried space for people to enjoy and just interpret sorcery in the ways they want, whether it's competitive or collecting or playing. And so seeing the content creators, because it's so small, like there's a lot of people cross interacting with each other, right? And we have people that travel to like every event, or people that are collaborating to play games online across, from Canada and Germany. And, you just see everything at this stage is really easy to follow and be a force multiplier. And our team is hard at work. And we are also like avid consumers of sorcery content. And so, part of my job is to stay on top of, watch the videos of people and keep on top of these things. But like, I think everyone on the team is watching content, and we're passing it around and we're talking about it. And I just think it means so much to Eric. Has a really strong vision of what he wants us to be, but it's hard to kind of put your finger on the exact thing. I might be getting a little esoteric here, but like there's a certain joy and intangible component to sorcery that we want to put out there, right? We want to have a certain feeling. And it really means a lot to see other people see that and get that feeling, and then and try and move with that and share that with other people. It like, helps us, be a compass point to be like, yeah, okay, we're going in the right direction here.
That's kind of cool. Like, I like the part that it's sort of like, a back and forth, because you put out an amazing game, content creators and players and collectors interact with that. But then some of the content comes back to you, and you sort of like navigate it a bit like a feedback. Is like, is this giving the right vibe? Are people like experiencing it like we hope they will?
Right. Yeah, and it's it's still a small cross section, right? Because not everybody has the skills to make media. So we're seeing feedback in lots of ways, but that's one of the ways that's pretty visual. And one thing cool about a lot of content creators is that they're really mindful to keep it open to the community, right? Where they're going and visiting stores, they're having people on guests or cross collaborating with other people. And so it paints a really great picture for us.
Yeah, that's cool to hear. I mean, we're veering slightly off some questions here, but I think it's kind of interesting to pursue. Do you think there is a niche of content for sorcery that we haven't seen yet? Because in the beginning, a lot of was about the art and the cards because you couldn't play with it yet. Then we got a lot of assertions of people doing a lot of player content. Is there still a niche that you think could be, opened up?
I think definitely there is. And the hard part is it's like there's a kind of for content creation, that's its own game, right? And it's like the amount of time you put into something isn't necessarily proportionate to the number of views you get. Like disappointingly so, maybe sometimes, right? Maybe I've had that experience. And so, this is not maybe, content creation advice, but I think the idea of like narrative gameplay, right? And taking your time and telling a story through that is really an untapped potential. And that's the hardest thing for us as a company to sometimes spotlight, right? Because we're a kitchen table TCG game, right? But it's easy to talk about events and easy to talk about top decks and these sorts of things. But how do you get a snapshot of like what's going on at home when friends are talking about and they're having those smaller moments and maybe telling stories as they play? It's sometimes harder to elevate those voices. And so I think, there's probably still space for content there. And that being said, like, that's a lot, right? It takes a lot of effort to make a compelling narrative story gameplay. But, that's probably one area. But I think, a lot of the areas people are really doing a great job. And gameplay, people put out fantastic gameplay. People are collaborating. We've got some great podcasts. We've got people that also do fantastic news coverage in really compelling and fun ways. So, yeah, I think that's probably the one thing that comes to mind immediately. But as we grow too, more of these things will open up and there'll be new niches and ways to explore things.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see the development of those kind of things. But speaking of development, where do you think and hope sorcery is going to be in 5 years from now?
World domination. I think. I think there are like long-term plans, and so many things develop as you go as well. New things and potential unlocks with new partnerships, etc. I think in 5 years, one thing I think that's important is that like what is important to sorcery. People talk about like success of sorcery, and things that are kind of baked into the company are Eric's vision about what the game should feel like being a kitchen table TCG, but also the relationship with the artists, right? Celebrating artists and having them in a position where it's sort of a win-win for both of us. And so I think in 5 years, regardless of how many sets we've got or what that looks like or crazy new mechanics, I think we'll still have the the artist-centric component, and I think we'll still have that focus on people just having fun while they play the game. And I think that's everything else is sort of secondary as long as we can keep those core components there.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because there's a lot of people talking about success, but success, how do you measure that? What are your metrics for success? If people are enjoying the game, if you're staying true to that original vision with some flexibility to move around, of course, that in itself is also a type of success. If you're really getting, games out there that people are enjoying. Do you think that you have moved already from what the game and the company and the vision was at the beginning and then until now, or are you still pretty much at the same place?
I think that's interesting. I think we've continued to grow in that way. We've been, I feel like it's always awkward talking about this, but like we've been very successful, right? And the company's in a good place. And people really seem to love sorcery. There's been a tremendous amount of demand. Sometimes demand overflowing, and it's been really exciting. But I think, I don't know, we've grown, we've changed a lot as a company. We've grown, and as we've expanded, like things change as you grow. But I think it's like reassuring that as we take these steps, we're still in a spot where like, is this right for the players? Will this help unlock potential for stores, for store owners. Like, it's nice to be able to have that padding to be able to think about these topics in that other way as well, besides just like numbers on a spreadsheet. And I think maybe that's kind of part of the core of sorcery as itself as well. It's like, it's not just about the mechanics. It's about these other broader topics and broader, how does it feel? How do we hit these other things? And so as long as you can have, a balanced state and this, like, that's good. As long as we be a company that is successful financially and, can get these other elements that are about like who we are, that's our success. So, we've changed, but I think we still hold those elements as we've grown.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have to just mention that just before we are doing this interview, we have the day before, we had a little spoiler from Arthurian Legends. So can you give us like maybe 3 words about this set? Like, what would you say to describe it? 3 words from the top of your head.
3 words. I'm not someone who speaks in concise things. Gosh. Everything is better. I don't know. Like, I'm like almost nervous because it's like, and I don't want to like set expectations like, too high, but like, it's really fun. And I think if you're a fan of sorcery, you're gonna be really happy. And I think if you're someone who's maybe hasn't gotten into sorcery yet, and for some reason is watching this backwards in the future, I think the theme itself will resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do it, but like, our artists, you're fans of the art, but I feel like they're consistently putting out like better and better pieces of art. Not that the art that is out there now isn't like great, but like a lot of these artists have really like outdone themselves. And it's just fun to see, everybody bringing their A game, and our, development design has been so fantastic. The vision on it, it's been really fun to be a part of. So I think, there was a lot of learning that went into the alpha set. And so we're now able to iterate on that. And we've seen that even some like design choices with like Koinixie, maybe versus like Guile Siren, like some of the ways we can approach things in it, maybe like a little bit more elegant way. But I just, I'm really excited. And I want to like, I'll manage expectations. Everyone's got like, I think people are going to be really excited. And it just takes everything to the next level.
That's awesome to hear. And I think people are really excited. I mean, everybody's just like sending around pictures. There's a spoiler, go check it out. And I mean, people are already super excited for it.
Yeah, and also, having a set in this really well-beloved fantasy sphere is just absolutely awesome. I can't wait to just look at the art and see what the artists have been doing.
Were you fans of Arthurian Legends personally? Or are you fans of Arthurian Legends?
I'm just gonna tell you the names of our 3 boys. We have Tristan, we have Arthur, and we have Hector.
Okay, there we go.
So that kind of maybe explains it. But if you're not, if the viewer isn't necessarily into the whole myth, those are some of the knights around the table, and of course King Arthur himself. We both have like a historical interest in it, but also like that sort of knight around the table trope with a magician and some powerful women, and it just has everything that you want in a fantasy setting.
I think it's a theme that definitely speaks to people strongly, and for me personally, the same thing. And I just remember as a kid, reading, just diving into it and being engulfed by Arthurian Legends and the stories in various forms, from like children's books up until an adult. Like, and there's so many ways to engage with that. So it's really powerful.
Yeah, and I think it's like it just also it feels so much like something sorcery should do, because it is like the core theme of like this medieval setting with knights and magic and everything. So it just feels extremely fitting for this old school type of game to pick up a trope, but also, and I think that's a compliment to everyone on the team, doing something unexpected with it. We did a video covering the Koinixie, for example, where I was like, okay, that's a twist. I mean, that was not necessarily something I would expect to see. And now the more we've been talking about it, I think we're up for seeing perhaps a lot of like folklore, mythology creatures as well, and not just like the standard knights in armor, but also a lot of like mythological creatures. So I'm very
Who
excited to
knows?
see that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, also because we heard from an interview with Tony Scudlow that he had done some art on some nights, but also something that he said was, maybe a little bit weird or at least unexpected to him. So I was like, okay, I think we have something in store that might be a little, off what you would expect from Arthurian Legends. And I'm looking forward to see what you have, up your sleeve.
Sorry.
Not confirming or denying anything on your end.
Yeah, I'm also looking forward to see, how the mechanics will work. We have seen the round table.
Mm.
We have seen that there's going to be some interaction with knights and dams and stuff like that. And we've also been looking at, some of the older cards, for example, Vanguard Knights. And they're not knights in their flavor line. They're just mortals. So I'm like, are there going to be, a difference between mortals and knights? And yeah, I'm looking forward to see what you have been doing, on that
Killing
part.
me here. We'll see.
Yeah, and there's also something about placement on the grid, because Tintangle has like, there's something about that back row. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking people should probably start stocking up on something that can move sites or destroy sites or do some interaction, because it seems like there might be a theme going on there as well.
Well, and the thing is that our design team is so great. I mean, I feel like it's weird. I'm kind of like, I'm a fan as well of Sorcery here talking about it, but there's so much design space with the grid. Like there is just an exponential amount of cool things that can be done. And I think Sorcery lends itself to playing in that space. And so it's really exciting to get to see, what the design team comes up, and then I get to jump in and play some things sometime with them and be like, oh, wow. And it's like, I don't know. I'll say no more, but it's, there's a lot of them.
All right.
But we could maybe stay on topic for Arthurian Legends, right?
Yeah, I was going to proceed to the next question here.
Cool.
So, yeah, staying on topic with Arthurian Legends, we know that it's going to release in Q4. So could you tell us a little about what you have in store for us, up to the release? Are there going to be, some sort of events, reveals, something like that?
Yeah. There's kind of two sort of responses here. So I guess the first is kind of the more like, corporate response, but, quarter four is still, many months out. And so, we have to be kind of measured about how we approach our reveals. We want to be in line with kind of industry standards. And, if you go too early, people won't retain the information. So, we've got to be kind of careful about how we do this. So we've got to be, strategically scoped out here. So, what we need to ultimately do is to be able to support the promotional side with product availability. So, anything we do with promotion needs to revolve around the product. That being said, kind of taking the hat off here for a second. Yes, there's going to be promotion coming up to it, and there's going to be some reveals. There'll be official sources, some non-official sources. Who knows? Maybe people will even see something on a channel like Cardboard Guide. It could be anything. The sky's the limit. We'll just say.
You heard it here first.
So it's still a little early for us to really get into it, but yeah, we're gonna have fun, and there's so much to share. We're bursting with excitement and enthusiasm to share. Like people want to see stuff. Like, yeah, but it's worse for us. Like we see it, like, wow, we can't wait to show someone this, and it's like, oh no, we gotta wait. All right, so we're the ones really suffering here. But so yes, long answer, yes, there will be reveals. I can't talk about it fully yet, but yeah, it's coming. We're getting closer every day. So.
Yeah, and I feel like we've already gotten to see some cards, but I mean, there was also like a little event going on where there was a piece of art hiding, and I mean, there's like sneaky stuff going on all over the place if people keep their eyes open.
It won't, for our more official, it won't always be like a sneaky thing in the background. Like when we're in full promotion mode, that'll be a little more front center, but we do like to have fun. I think, we like to play, and hopefully the community that responds well, the community, people like to look for stuff, whether it's a silly love potion videos or, putting a painting in the background of events, which can sometimes backfire when people are like too respectful and like, oh, wow. Like we won't say anything because it's like, it's here. We'll like, and it's like, no, you can share this once you see it. Like, go ahead. But it's, all sorts of fun.
Yeah, and I mean, for us, I think that's awesome because we love playing detectives. So, I mean, I think I watched the video where Eric was in headquarters with clearly some paintings behind him. I think I watched that in slow motion on our big iMac computer. I don't know, maybe 20 times to get like the best frame picture I could. And we're still very excited. I'm still saying I think it's Arthur and Guinevere behind him, but we will see when the reveal comes.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, I definitely remember lowering that one clip's resolution in the video. I was like, because we're always like, no one's going to see this. And people will be like, super easily solve it in a second. And we're like, oh, okay. But,
Yeah. But I think that's fun. And I think that's also part of like the vibe of sorcery that you guys are up for playing and, throwing some fun stuff out there, like the curios, of which we will not speak, of course. But I think that is also a very fun part of the thing.
Allegedly. I don't know what you're talking about, but yeah.
No, of course not. Of course
Exactly. Can neither deny or confirm anything. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So we also have a few questions. I mean, we know from some of the artist interviews, and I think maybe Simon also mentioned that you are, of course, not just working on Arthurian Legends, because to have like a release cadence, you need to be a few sets in advance. So can you like say anything about how does that work? Do you like figure out a theme? Do you like, okay, we got some cool art? Can you say anything about how do new sets come about?
Oh boy. Okay. Let's see. How far can we get into? I don't know. Can I spread rumor? So what happens is Eric comes and sits down and he just meditates. Then he stands up and he just writes on a board and we're like, aha, eureka.
Woo!
I can't speak to that fully. So, I'm more on the comm side and the design team is fantastic and we're a small company. So there's a lot of cross pollination and they're often inviting me in to try things out to see if it has the flavor, how it feels and that. But between Eric, who's got the big vision here, right? He's really driving the company here. We've got Mike, who is our senior designer. And he's really great when it comes to like the process and pipelines and really keeping the structure of that. So he's kind of helping us make sure that, we're hitting the target dates and that things are set up to help facilitate us being able to make these sets efficiently with, minimal disruption and things like that. And then Rafa, of course, long time with sorcery. And he's kind of like, got a lot of institutional knowledge and such great ideas. And then Sean, the voice of the Grandmaster Wizard, who is, just brings so much. Like that's like kind of a real like energizer and a really fountain of knowledge. And so with them, they kind of, huddle around their cauldron and they make these ideas and then they polish them and refine them. And so, sometimes things come in spits and spurts and sometimes you get a cool idea that opens up like a whole new like realm to go into. Sometimes, it's like, well, this actually has some fundamental problems. We want to go a different direction. But there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of room for mechanics and design space in sorcery. And so sometimes, there's stuff that is commissioned that we're like, oh, like this is going to be perfect, but it's going to be like a piece that goes out like in 5 years. Like, it's like, so, I don't know. I guess I can't really give a full comprehensive answer to that. Besides the fact that it's like, yeah, we're working on new sets. It's a lot of fun. Things are getting refined and moving along well. And, it's really reassuring about the future of sorcery that it's going to be able to have like these sorts of conversations again and again and again about, the cool new thing and then the next cool thing. And there's going to definitely be some smiles. And, I think the one consistent through line 100% will be the art is going to be amazing. Some of the pieces that have come in or are coming in or being commissioned just blow my mind. And I don't know. Can we say this? Like, I think sorcery, we're very fortunate to have such strong artists. There are many artists out there that do great work. We feel fortunate that it just so happens that so many great artists are working with sorcery. So,
yeah, absolutely. But I also think, because sometimes we kind of tend to forget that there are still a lot of new people coming in because we talk, a lot with the same people and a lot of people have been around since the Kickstarter. So I think I saw a question, I think it was on the official Facebook page. and they were like, so what's going on? Are there more sets coming? Is it like one set and is that it? And people were like, no, dude, you need to know this, and you can check out this video or like see this card, and there's lots coming. So I think it's also just like worth mentioning to new people in sorcery that there are so many plans, and we can hear from different artists that they're excited working on more projects and commissions, and that there are loads of like different plans up ahead. So sorcery is like still majorly evolving.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're just getting started.
I'm going to be careful not to speak out of turn here because we do want to be measured in how we message this sort of stuff. But I think what we'll probably see is a lot of a focus on Arthurian Legends. And then once Arthurian Legends is out, like everyone's always going to be like, what's the next thing, right? And then we'll start to message some of that. But there are plans, and there's some really, well, there's exciting stuff. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, that's absolutely cool.
Yeah, and also I just want to say this, that also, you know, great praise to you and the team, because the artists we've spoken to are also really, you know, fond of working for sorcery, and they have only, you know, very good things to say about the company, and they feel, you know, really well treated. And I think that's very nice to see in this sort of, you know, new sort of age TCG environment, that you're bringing back the old flavor and really, you know, respecting the artist and giving them, you know,
a lot of like freedom to play around and do what they want.
Yeah, and like it comes down to how do you create, and I say this a lot, but like how do you create win-wins, right? And a lot of our artists are some of our biggest advocates. Some of them even play the game and are fans in that regard as well. And you know, we want to nurture those relationships because like this is amazing. Like we're making a TCG, and you know, artists get to have their art in it, and we get to show their art, and like this is so cool for all of us. So like, you know, let's just tap down on that and like find more ways to celebrate it. And I think that's merit in the community, right? People want to celebrate the artists, and in a way that also helps elevate sorcery. So like the rising tide helps everybody. So I don't know. Yeah. That's just kind of a core to our philosophy of how we want to do business.
Yeah, and I think that's really great. And I also think that we're like, I think the game is re-engaging people with art, because somehow we're just like so used to, I mean, other TCGs putting out a lot of sets, and sometimes that also means that you get sort of like desensitized. You know, there's a whole focus on, oh my God, there's actually a real person using time, energy, love, you know, talent, adding all this into the art. Also because of like the slower pace, there's time to appreciate and enjoy it and engage with the artist. I mean, a lot of them have been super cool about giving interviews and talking about the art. And I think that like encourages a whole new appreciation for art in TCGs. And I think that has been lovely to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that also encourages community, right? And we know we do things, and we have things in the works for the future where, you know, like our Painting the Realm spotlights of artists. There'll be more to come on stuff like that. But also you want to leave a little bit of an air gap, right? Where the community can also step in and do those things too. And that's the great thing, is that the artists are accessible for everybody. And, you know, everyone's, you know, may have different schedules. They may be more or less inclined to doing sorts of things. But there's that opportunity for them to explore, or for the community to explore.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that has been great. And again, they're just really, you know, committed. Jens met Matthias Frisk, and he has been kind enough to do a little token for our upcoming tournament. And it's just really cool that everybody is just like, they're joining forces to make sure that sorcery is a thing that stays around. And I think that's really awesome to see.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a great, we know we've got, this is our humble village, right? We got the community here where everyone's kind of in alignment. It's really great to see. So, you know, here's to the future of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have also, I mean, I just mentioned that we're doing, you know, tournament for some European players, but all in all, we have seen like a lot of great events and some really impressive initiatives. We've seen like Sorcery Con, March of the Mortals, all the cup qualifiers, and Spring Sorcery Social coming up soon. And some of these events are massive. And I mean, there's so much organization going into it and artists coming out. How has it been for the team and you know, personally, to see so much fan-driven engagement?
It's overwhelming, right? I mean, there's no other way to put it. These are events that are being put on. These aren't just like local communities. Like people are flying out to the events, that are traveling. There are artists that are going to the events, and traveling as well. Sometimes, there's varying agreements, but like to just, because they want to be a part of that. And it's really reaffirming, right? And for us, I think a lot of this goes down to, it's like, we want to, each of these events has their own personality, right? And I think what's so cool is you named a few, and you've got yours coming up, right? They're each going to have their own sort of vibe, and they're like a cross section of the community, and people are finding their places, right? And yet we're still at a stage where there's a lot of that cross pollination where people can travel between these groups, they know each other, but people are connecting, and it's more than just sorcery, right? They're building friendships, right? It's not just about the game. And so what we're really trying to think about is like, how do you build that sort of infrastructure, right? And that can be simple things. We have Curiosa.io, right? We saw that deck builder in the community, and we said, hey, no, that's the best deck builder. Like, that really helps facilitate people interacting with the game and connecting. And so, that was brought into the fold. We've got our partners with Cardi.io, right? With the Sorcery Play Network, which now allows us to build out from here and support stores in different ways with Dust, and build out that play network. So as we're building this scaffolding, and we're hoping that this can support the community as they want to take on these events. And if you want to have a 64-person event, well, great. You run on the Sorcery Play Network, and we can help with Dust then, and you guys can interact with getting promos and stuff, just by playing the game the way you want to do it, in addition to however you want to run your event. And there's a lot of different philosophies on how you can support events, and it can be, top prizes, etc. But, or you can have a little bit of a wider net here with, Dust for participation. But, it's just really been heartwarming and overwhelming to see the community respond so strongly. The leadership, the people that have stepped up to make communities, have been such great representatives of the game and the values, and that's been really amazing as well. And then I think with almost every event we've seen, it's not just been about the game. There's been an effort to position the importance of art, or celebrating the cards themselves in that way as pieces of art. And I think that kind of speaks a lot to the values of the community, and really, kind of getting the message of what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. And I think it's also cool that, it's almost become tradition that there's like a piece of art for the first prize, or there is like art you can get from either cards or postcards or prints and everything. And it's just really bringing in a lot of the aspects of the game that we were just talking about: the art, the community, the fun, the narrative, everything. Did it ever like cross your minds as you see these events come up, and some of them more competitive, some more casual, that maybe sorcery is sort of like developing on its own and becoming more competitive? Does any of the events like change how you feel about the kitchen table origins of sorcery?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I think, at its core, we're aligned here on Eric's vision, right? This is a kitchen table TCG game, and inevitably there's going to be people that want to take a competitive approach to sorcery, and that's great, right? I think we firmly believe that we should not be the arbiters of how people should enjoy sorcery, right? And that's for the community, and people can take this in different directions. And people have made custom game modes, and like, that's awesome. Like, go for that, right? And so, at its core, though, I think it's great people are doing these competitive events, and we want to encourage that. And we love seeing that. And at its core, when it comes to design, like, we're always going to stay true to our kitchen table TCG like roots, right? We do some wild stuff with cards, and the kitchen table vibe allows us to do huge explosions, or frogs that eat people, or just kind of wild stuff that can sometimes be challenging for competitive play, and people can work around that. But that's a big part of what makes sorcery. So we're not going to lose the ability to do kind of fun stuff, right? We're not going to kind of remove that just to kind of move towards a competitive play. We want to kind of walk that line where, there's balance. It is an enjoyable game where people can explore different metas and talk about it in a high level. But we still want to have some of the other elements, that is the fantastical, the moments that bring you joy or surprise, or people, go, wait, that does what? We want to keep that component. So, I'm mindful of how I was talking about that. And now, no way, it's like, I don't want to come across as denigrating competitive play, because I think that's amazing. And that's also an important part of a TCG ecosystem. And, at its core, we want to really always stay true to that original vision we have.
Is Sorcery going to be hosting competitive tournaments in the future? Or are you, letting the community have those kind of competitive tournaments?
I think, we're still a pretty small company. And so I think as we grow, there's always things that we can look at for opportunities. But like right now, we're just really trying to focus on nailing the foundations that will let us grow in a strong way and support the community writ large, right? And I talked earlier about like Cardi.io and the Sorcery Play Network. That really unlocks a lot of potential for us. So, could we see competitive events or organized events from us in the future? Like, we have, support events at Gen Con, things like that. But I think on a larger scale, like as we grow, there's always the potential for things. But right now, we're really focusing on how can we empower the community to celebrate the game in the ways that make sense to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're saying, like you just mentioned Gen Con, and you had this big reveal that you will be coming to Spiel, which is in Essen, Germany, and doing, I think you call it an unveiling of Arthurian Legends. Can you say anything about what you think that event is going to be like? What can you experience if you decide to travel to Essen to see this?
Well, we have some more information on that coming up, so I don't want to get too much into it. But if you're a fan of Arthurian Legends, if you're a fan of sorcery, I think that's going to be the place to be. So you can see this, first there. And I think I know this. Some members of the team are going to be there. Maybe I won't get into specifics of that, but you get a chance to meet some of the team from Eric's Curiosa. And Spiel Essen, is a pretty big stage, right? And so I think it's going to be really exciting. And we've been in talks already with, that organization as well about, booth space and security and what that might look like for things. And it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a good time. So you'll stay tuned on, sorry, I put on my hat on. Stay tuned for on Sorcery social media for more announcements about Spiel Essen with the exact specifics. But if you're local, if you're in that area and you can make the trip, I'd love to see you there. So it'd be nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And Cardboard Guide Sophie is, of course, going to be there. And book your hotel and your airplanes now, because I think the number of inhabitants in Essen is actually going to maybe double during the event. So you should get your hotel room now.
Yeah, definitely get it locked down, get your hotel, get your airfare, everything before the tickets go online. That's what I've heard. That's the best to do. So but we are
There's
very much
people were mentioning that were wanted to travel from overseas to the event, and it's like, don't forget to check your passport. Like, do it now.
Yeah, absolutely. Chase, it has been great talking with you, but we have like a few last questions. So we've asked this to some of the artists. We've also, I think we maybe also asked this of Simon, and I think it's a fun one because it does let you do a bit of creative thinking here. So if you were like in charge for not the next, but the set after, and you got to design a theme for a sorcery set. Free reigns. What would be your favorite, most cool setting that you could imagine sorcery going to?
Okay. I'm a big fan of like wilderness sort of stuff, or like ice and like snow stuff. I would love to see some sort of like polar bears, ruler of Fowle, like polar explorers. Like I'd love to have some sort of like cold theme thing. I think that would really capture my imagination. Yeah. And then as far
I'm interpreting that to mean like you could go along with some Norse mythology.
Right. Yeah. I feel like we always take like vacations to the cold, like let's go somewhere there's snow. And so I'm like, I'd love to see that. I think one of my favorite pieces of art in all of sorcery is Blizzard from Jeff Menges. And I don't know why. It's the elements, but also it's like the positioning. Like sometimes art, because it's going to have a card text box, that's going to be there. Like it does an interesting thing to the composition. And I think in that particular piece with like the snow and the person, and then like the big white element in the bottom, like it really is evocative to me. So more stuff like that. Come on, Jeff. Let's go. No.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually fun that you mentioned it, because when we interviewed Jeff, he said that he lives a place that's really cold and there's a lot of snow, and he had just been painting, sort of the outside of his window where he lived, and he he was so pleased with this piece of art that he was like, it's staying, it's not going anywhere. So that hangs on his own wall.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear. Yeah, I think an ice set would be really cool too. I would love to see, some Nordic mythology. There's a lot of you can also even go into some Greenlandic culture. They have I think it's 42 words for different kinds and types of snow and ice, because they are so in tune with that element. I think there would be a lot of game space and design space for that. That would be really fun. Skiing across sites, or
Ooh,
riding
like
the wolves across the
dog
sites with
sled or
wolf pack.
something.
That would be amazing.
All the people out there who are building their wolves deck are now like, oh, we've got ideas.
Yeah, let's get like a snowmobile, but with wolves.
Yeah. Sleigh behind the wolves, you can just drag your avatar around the entire grid.
How cool would that be?
That's going to be great. All right. So the last question, Chase. Do you have a favorite card so far in Sorcery?
I feel like every time I get asked this question, I change it. So if you see me say this before, you're like, that's not what you said last time. A single card? Okay, gosh. I feel like I'm just like flashbacks. I played a game last night, and if that person's watching, it's not going to be Mega Amoeba Boots Landdeed. So I say, you know who you are. Gosh, I don't know. Is there some of these are kind of loaded questions too? Like if I say maddening bells, will people think I'm a bad person?
Yeah.
It's
like being a blue player and Magic.
I think, I don't know. I feel like this is the safe one. I've talked about this before, but Rolling Boulder, it's just a classic. And I feel like every time I use that card, I smile. And then when it gets rolled back at me, even though it's painful, I still smile. And I just, love the way that interplays with the realm and the mechanics. So probably Rolling Boulder, I'd say right now. But don't hold me on that. I'll change it. No, next game I play, I'll be like, actually, this is my favorite card.
But how cool is that there are so many awesome cards that you're change your mind after each and every game, because it's a new fun experience. I had a lot of fun with Rolling Boulder in the multiplayer game. That card was made for multiplayer, because you can just it rolls all around and trashes everything. So I think that's a good card to choose.
Yeah, definitely.
So here at the end, summing up, is there anything you would like to say or ask about, or before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's been so supportive of Sorcery. Thank you especially to you for the work that you've done, sort of championing not only the game, but the community, connecting people, putting out that positive energy and helping, kind of get across the values of Sorcery. And thanks for letting me come on here to have a kind of an informal, casual talk. I'll probably say, I can be a little bit flowery or, casual with my conversation. And it was fun to be able to kind of engage in that way with you. And it really meant a lot. So thanks for making the time and inviting me on.
Thank you, and thank you for joining. Yeah, our
absolutely.
pleasure.
So everybody, thank you so much for watching. We really enjoy communicating with you. So if you have a comment or a question, put it down below in the comments, and it would mean a lot to us if you would just smash that like button and consider also subscribing to the channel. We do our best to keep up with Sorcery. We've been very lucky to have the occasional interview. So we are looking forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye, guys.